Hi, everyone. Welcome to this special edition of the Bug Scope. This is your host, Isa Betancourt, and I'm really excited for this evening's program. Hope you guys are well. Make sure, if you haven't already, you subscribe to follow along with the Bug Scope and sign on to HAPS and use my referral code as well if you haven't already. So you can come in and join the conversation. This is also multicasting over to YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook as well. And we will be able to see your comments and read them. All comments are aggregated onto the HAPS platform. And so thanks, guys, for joining. I see here Knowledge. Hi, Pablo. Hi, David. Hi, Lee. Hi, Michael. Hello, Molly. Fireflies. That's the topic for today. Very excited to, in a moment, bring on our guest. Our guest is Dr. Oliver Keller, who earned his PhD in entomology a year ago from the University of Florida, studying the systematics and taxonomy of fireflies. Currently, he's working at the Florida State Collection of Arthropods, and so excited to bring him on. So here he is. Welcome, Oliver, to the broadcast. So glad to have you here this evening with us to talk about fireflies and how to help them.
Hi, Isa, and hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here and finally get to be on the Bug Scope. I mean, took long enough.
Yeah, Oliver has joined in many times in the past on Periscope in past years, and so it's really super to be able to bring him on in video format right here on the Bug Scope. He's down in Florida, as I mentioned before now, and I'm all the way up in Michigan, so thank you to HAPS for these tools to bring us together to talk about fireflies live here. So hello, I'll say hello to more people who are coming in here. I see David, hello, Tat. Hello, Bill. Hi, silly me. Hope you guys are all doing well. And Sebastian, hello. Yes, that's right. Firefly time. Yeah, make sure you guys say hello when you pop in so we can say hi to you too. Yeah, so as we get started, I guess I'll share too that Oliver and I have known each other for a while. We met on the internet from entomology Twitter space, and then currently we're both serving on the executive board of the Entomological Collections Network, which has been a lot of fun working together to put together the entomology collection meetings each year. Oliver, can you tell us, to kick it off, about what makes a firefly a firefly?
Well, that's a good question, actually. So, interestingly, not all fireflies actually flash as adults or glow. So the synapomorphy really, or the one of the things that unite fireflies is that actually all larvae, all immature stages, as far as we know, do glow, but not all adults actually do. Also, fireflies or lightning bugs, or glowworms, or whatever name there is across the world, because I saw there's some people from London, from England here. You guys call them glowworms. We call them fireflies or lightning bugs, depending on where you are. Down here in Florida, it's usually firefly. In a lot of places, they call them lightning bugs, but they're neither flies or bugs. They're actually beetles. So it's one of the families of beetles, and there's about 2,500 species as far as we know right now. And as I said, not all the adults glow. So not all of the adults actually have light organs. And if we have any guests from California, they will all know this, because they do not have any flashing adult fireflies in California, Oregon, or Washington, so west of the Rocky Mountains. Otherwise, you can recognize fireflies out in the field when you look at them from above. You can usually not see their heads unless their head is extended out, but usually the head is covered underneath the thorax, so you can't really see that. And then there's a couple of characters that we use as experts, where the way the femora is attached with the other leg parts, the femora is oblique, so that's another way to identify them if you have one in front of you, as a pin specimen. But yeah, usually those are the main characters, and you can't really identify them by antennae or anything because they have pretty much almost all kinds of antennal types. So those are hard. But, the character that you can't see the head works in most cases.
When you say they have all different types of antennal types, like what types of antenna are there?
So you can see here on the picture that you can see that's Photinus paralis, probably for sure North America's most known firefly, but probably the most known firefly in the world. But you can see that's just a straight antennae, what we call filiform antennae in entomology. And then I can show another picture. I actually, just for that reason, uploaded one. I think, okay, let's see, does this, okay.
Wow.
So this is a species in the genus Magnaculus. And so this firefly does not have light organs as an adult. So they use their antennae to find mates. So so fireflies or a lot of beetles smell with their antennae. So this has very elaborate antennae, and that's the way they can find mates through pheromones, actually. So there's anything in between. So I think one of the firefly species is the beetle with the most antennal segments, because I think there's something like 30 antennal segments, and usual beetles have between 8 and 11 antennal segments, but there's one firefly that has like 30 from Brazil.
And so it has that many segments so that it has more receptors to find their mate. That's what you're saying?
That's what we think. That that way it has more surface area and probably can find mates via pheromones better. Yes, but we don't really know much about the life history of that species, so it would be interesting to look into that and see what happens if you manipulate the antennae, if they could find mates less successfully or not.
So it could potentially, but the information's not totally there. It could potentially be like how moths have feathery antennae.
Yes.
To find their mates at nighttime. Cool.
Exactly. The male moth have the feathery antennae, while the female moth have the normal antennae, and that's again pheromones, and you have more surface area on your antennae, so you can find mates easier. Yes.
Cool. So David Dunn is saying no fireflies here in California, but I remember them well when I lived in Iowa.
That's a question I get very often, or from people, but I have a couple of slides I have to see. So you have a few species of fireflies in California, but none of the adults light up, but all the larvae of them do. So one of them is this Microphotus angustus, which is called also the California glowworm. Can we see that?
A bit larger.
So and this is something you can easily find on iNaturalist or Bug Guide or any of those pages where people submit their pictures for identification. But this is a female Microphotus firefly. You can see the light organ at the end. So the female does not fly. She does not have wings, so she crawls around. And the males can fly, but they do not have light organs at that point. So you will not see any flashing fireflies flying around, but there are definitely some where you can find in the ground on the leaf litter or so. And then there is another one that I have a picture of. Elychnia californica is a fairly big firefly. This picture is also from iNaturalist. This one is about a little bigger than a centimeter, and it's also all the way up from California into Oregon. A lot of the records that you can see here in Canada, in British Columbia, or in Washington are probably misidentified, but you can find this firefly fairly, I think, often in California if you go into any of the national parks or national forests. There's a lot of records on iNaturalist, and people find them quite frequently. But yes, you do not have any flying and flashing west of the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah. what they're famous for too. But you said that all of the larvae glow.
As far as we know, all firefly larvae, pupa, and eggs bioluminesce, yes.
Okay. Will you give us, while we're talking about like what is and isn't, and where are some of the fireflies across North America? Will you share with us the life cycle of a firefly?
Yes.
Awesome.
So this is a life cycle from an Asian firefly, but it's pretty much the same for all of them.
Uh-huh.
In a lot of time. So basically, we have a holometabolous insect, so a complete metamorphosis. So we have the eggs as a life stage, the larvae, pupa, and then the adults. In this case, the females, you can see where the adults are. The males are winged and small, but they can fly, and you probably have light organs to flash, and the females have no light or have no wings, and they crawl around on the ground. That's
For,
not the case for all fireflies. So there's
right.
also fireflies where both the female and the male can fly. A lot of times, when that is the case, the females will sit somewhere in the grass and hold on, and they will flash. And the males are the ones that go and find the females, and they kind of like establish some communication by by flash patterns. So each species, also as far as we know, has a different flash pattern that the females and the males can recognize and then find each other. There is
And
then only one other problem, that there's one genus of fireflies that is prominently in North America, but also down all the way from Central America to South America, that can actually mimic the flash patterns of other fireflies to lure them in.
what happens when they're lured in?
Well, when they're lured in, this is a picture from the website. Let's just see. Silent Sparks, which is by Sarah Lewis. They lure in the males and then they eat them. And so
Wow.
this is the big one is a Futurus firefly. And these fireflies are actually, the females are called femme fatales. And this was actually discovered by a professor at the University of Florida, Jim Lloyd, who sadly died last year. But he found in the 60s that these female Futurus fireflies mimic the flash patterns of Pyractomina and Photinus fireflies, and they lure in the males. So the males think they found a female of their species, and they go in to mate, and then this female catches them and then eats them. And they eat them because most fireflies are chemically defended, and they have these chemicals called lucibophagens that make them taste bad. But Futurus females apparently cannot sequester that themselves. So they eat the males to get the chemicals out of them, and then they can sequester those chemicals and give them to their offspring. So they give those chemicals to the eggs.
So
So the eggs are protected.
so they've come to this point in the evolution of their species where they rely on catching the males of other firefly species to get the toxins that they use to protect their own eggs. Wow.
Yes.
And
So this.
what a scary situation for those male fireflies. I mean, who knows if they even know that the risk is there, you know? But
So yes, we think they are, because I think we think some species actually evolved to avoid this, where they the adults emerge earlier or later in the year than possibly the Futurus species are out. Or there's actually one species which is called the winter firefly, Elychnia corusca, which technically is now Photinus corusca because Elychnia was synonymized. But we think that those guys are actually emerging during the winter time. So they're out right now. You can go up in Michigan and
oh, wow.
Pennsylvania, you can find them right now. But we
Yeah.
think they do that so to avoid Futurus and to avoid being eaten.
Wow. Cool. Very cool. What a life for what a competitive situation, and
Yeah.
but that's how natural organisms are. So yeah, the kinds that how common are the situations where the female maintains the larval form even as an adult? The larva form, out of curiosity. Do you know? Is that not very
Um,
common, or is it like?
that's a good question. I am not 100% sure because in a lot of cases for fireflies, we only know the males. We do not know the females. But that could also be, we could hypothesize because we don't know the females, it's because they can't fly and we don't as easily catch them at night when we go out to catch fireflies
Mm,
because they
oh,
would be on
yeah,
the ground and we might not actually see them. So
I
that is
see.
could be hypothesized that it possibly is very common, and that's the
Mhm.
reason we don't know a lot of the female fireflies.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Um, cool. So we have some comments saying that's scary from Ronnie, and Amy says that's just cruel, and Travis says they're basically a predator, and Molly says sounds practical to me, about the situation where the female lures in that male, and talk about hidden agendas. Indeed. Thanks for the super heart, Travis. Um, and Gina asked, do the larvae have light organs? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
And all of them do, is what you said, Oliver, once again?
As far as we know, all of them do, yes.
Okay, that's really cool. Um,
Um,
yeah.
I have a picture of larvae and
Oh,
pupa,
cool.
and you can see here. So there's some larvae and some pupa, and this picture is also from Silent Sparks. But and you can see there's on the left there's larvae that, and you can see the light organs, and on the right there's two pupa, which also have the two light spots, which
Wow.
they usually turn on when they get disturbed. So it's probably a protection mechanism where it's like an aposematic signal saying, I, here I'm glowing, I don't taste good. That's what we think, that because pupa don't move, so they have no other protection. They can't move away. They can't do anything besides actually glowing. So, and they taste bad. So firefly larvae, even the adults, they taste bad. So if you would ever put one on your lips, you would get a really bad taste probably, and your lip would go numb because they have like a slight, like a really, it's not a very good one, but it's an anesthetic, and your lips would go numb for a little bit.
Wow. So not even like eating them, but just touching
Just
them?
putting them on your lips would do that, yes.
Wow. That's
I
really
don't
cool.
recommend doing that.
You've done it, I'm guessing?
I have not, but I know a couple of people who have.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Um, answered. Oh, so there's the question, Molly. And yeah, so yeah, the larvae glow. Can you? We have another question from Welcome to Blue. Hi, Steve. Are there any firefly species that are disturbance specialists? For example, fire. And then also we have another question from David Howden asking, I think most of the European species are snail predators. Is that generally the case for this group?
Okay.
And so
Um,
while we're still on the base on like the biology of them, I am interested in you discussing what they eat as larvae and then also what they eat as adults.
okay, so we can talk about David's question then, but just to address the one question, I don't think there's any specialists for fire or anything like that I know of. I think that's usually very common, or not very common, and also in a small group of other beetles, but I don't think they do any of that. What do they eat? The short answer is mainly snails, slugs, or earthworms, depending on the species, how their life history is going on. Here's a picture of a.
Whoa. Oops, sorry.
Uh,
I just clicked something too.
that's a picture of a firefly larvae eating a slug. And then here is a picture of a firefly species eating a snail.
Wow. Here, I'm gonna make
So
myself
those
go
are
away.
very common, and fireflies actually have been used as for biocontrol, or people have tried to use them for biocontrol to combat invasive snails.
Wow. So it's the firefly larva's head is just in that snail chowing down?
In this
Or
case,
slug,
it's in
I
the
mean.
slug, but yes. So when you look at a firefly larvae head, it's kind of like cone shaped. so they have an easier time getting into the shells when they eat snail.
Wow. Yeah. So you can see it's three legs, and the other three are on the other side, hugging the slug as it eats it, and then lots of segments. And somewhere on that left side is the light organ, which is not lit up right now, but it can be lit up when if it's disturbed.
Yes. So on the little last segment there, where the sclerotized parts end, there's like it's pretty much the second to last segment is where the light organs. It's a little more yellow if you can see that. It
Okay.
has like a yellow spot. That's where the light organs would be there. It's usually two, one on each side. There's other fireflies that have more though.
Cool.
And then a lot of the Photinus, which is a common firefly in North America species, they eat earthworms. They also live in the ground. So they eat earthworms. But it depends on the life history of the larvae, what they eat. I've been told by a firefly enthusiast from Thailand who rears fireflies. His larvae, sometimes when he is out of snails or so, he actually feeds them little fish, and they will eat fish as well if
Wow.
given. They might not hunt them, but if given, they will eat them.
Cool. Wow. So cool.
And as adults, you have the one case I just talked about where the female adults eat other fireflies. That's the exception. Most fireflies do not eat. Some will eat pollen as adults.
Uh-huh.
Because firefly adults only probably live 1 to 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe. So pretty much like some butterflies or moth, they don't eat as adults.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. So a couple of comments here. Follow up. Ronnie says, I'll never look at a firefly the same way, right? There's so much to them. And hello, Super Dan, watching over on Twitch. And Two Scoops says, looks like it eats human brains too. It's intense. It's intense how they really get in there. But that's
It's fun to watch at night when you come across larvae and they're feeding. It's fun to watch.
Do you have a recommendation or advice on how to find their larvae? I'm so curious to go in my backyard and find them, but how do I start? What do you look for? How do you go about it?
Honestly, you just go outside on a really dark night. You turn your light off. You turn your headlight off. So being a firefly, I think if you go into a field to catch fireflies, you have to be a little crazy because you have to be out in unknown places, possibly in the dark, and because you can't disturb the fireflies flashing. But the larvae, you have to look into the leaf litter or sometimes on trees. Some larvae hunt on snails on trees, and you just have to be it has to be very dark, and you have to be adjusted to the darkness, and then just look for like glowing. And then if you want to catch them, you have to get as close as you can without turning a light on. And then when you're really close, I usually turn my headlamp on and hope that I can still see it because they stop glowing right away. And sometimes they are really well camouflaged, so they sit on the bark, but they're really dark brown, so it's hard to see them. So you just have to get as close as you can before you turn your light on.
Uh-huh.
And then other fireflies are out during the day, other larvae, and you can find them on the tree during the day. So
cool.
Yeah.
So they, when you turn the light on, they turn their light off.
Yes, and then even if you turn your light off again, they probably will wait a few minutes to turn their light on again.
Cool.
So
very cool.
I lost a lot of larvae on my trip to Dominican Republic. I saw them. I tried to get as close as possible, turned my light on, and could not find them.
Wow. And how big are they typically?
Depending on the instar. So if you find a first instar, we're talking a couple, 2 or 3 millimeters. But some larvae can get up to probably 4 centimeters. If you're like in Asia, there's a genus called Lampergera, the giant fireflies, and they can get pretty big. But here in North America, at the last instar, we're talking probably a centimeter.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cool.
like a third of an inch, a little bigger than that.
I'm going to bring up the glowing larva and pupa picture again because I thought that was really, really cool. Oops, here we go. Cool. Thank you, Oliver. Travis says, I remember as a kid catching firefly. I remember, yeah, catching fireflies as a kid. Yeah, definitely fond memories. I think that, I hope that most people on the East Coast and their ranges have those memories and that they carry on into the future as well. Which shortly we'll go into how to help fireflies. That's the other part of our program as well tonight. Let's see if there's any other questions here before we go there.
And
Go ahead.
I can share this a couple of more pictures of. So this is this giant firefly from Asia. You can see based on the hand how big it is. This is from a tweet from Sarah Luz again. So this is Lamprogera. This is a female actually, but they get huge. They can get up to I think 5 centimeters, 2 inches.
Wow. Here, let's
And
make
just
that
to
bigger.
show how different they look from the males, so this is a female and a male mating.
Wow. Okay, so here's that first one, and the red is so stunning. I would not know that's a lightning bug or lightning bug group right away, but now I would.
These guys are in Asia, and they actually will come to black lights at night. And you can see them with their lights on. They will crawl with their lights onto a black light. And apparently, from what I've been told by people who have seen it, it looks stunning to have that crawl towards you and stuff. And
Are they in Borneo by any chance?
there is a couple species. I'm not sure if this particular one is there, but there are definitely
Okay.
Lamprogera species in
Okay.
Borneo.
There's definitely one net-winged trilobite beetle there, but I only saw one, but I also didn't look thoroughly for more or have many nights where I did light trapping. Okay, and then here's the other one. That's pretty wild as well. What are those balls that are on next near them?
Those are eggs.
Wow, they're huge.
Yeah, for that species, they're pretty big. Yes.
Jeez. Wow, amazing. Cool. Gina says, now I know what I saw at my lawn. Did you see one? Where are you located out of curiosity, Gina? And Welcome to Blue says, sounds like frogging at night. Once your light goes on, they stop croaking. Yep. Gotta survive. Cool. All right. I'm just gonna quickly redo the intro here for anybody who's tuning in now and they're like, what's going on? So welcome to the Bug Scope. My name is Issa. I'm your host. Make sure you subscribe and follow, subscribe on Haps, or you can also subscribe on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, or on my Bug Ambassador Facebook page, or on my Twitter at IsaBetaBug to follow along. But following on Haps is recommended because that's where it all is. That's the hub. And you can please use my referral code if you do that. I do weekly insect-themed broadcasts on various different topics. We go into the field and look at things right in the backyard, and sometimes we go into collections and bring on special guests. And this evening we have a special program with Oliver. And I was asking Oliver, who's Dr. Oliver Keller, who is an expert on fireflies. And I was talking with Oliver about when is the best time to do this broadcast, because I had people asking me, like, how do we help fireflies? Because it's been floating around that they're at risk. And I was asking Oliver, when is a good time to have this broadcast? Sorry, I didn't realize that my picture wasn't on the frame. So hi everyone. So I asked Oliver, like, when's the best time to do this? Shall we wait until the fireflies are out in North America and all lit up to do this broadcast? And he was like, if you want to help the fireflies, the best time to do it is around lawn cleaning time. So I was like, all right, ASAP, got to get you on ASAP. So here we are. Yeah. Hello, Frank. Welcome to the broadcast. So yeah, thanks so much for joining with us, Oliver. Where would you like to take us next in
All right, then let's talk a little bit about what we can do to help fireflies. Firefly season actually has already started. The winter fireflies are out in almost every state that they're known from. I've seen pictures already reported on iNaturalist.
Mm-hmm.
And Isa and I made a picture or info. And so there's a few things you can do that may help the fireflies. It also depends where you live. If you're in the inner city, you might not have fireflies there, or they're not very abundant. If you live in the country, on the countryside or so, or in a smaller town, these are things you can do to help. I've been in Kentucky in smaller towns, and even inside the city, there were hundreds of fireflies in some parts. And soon in the northern states, you're going to have warmer weather, the snow's going to melt, and you're going to all start working on your yards, right? And so if you want to help fireflies, leave little areas in your yard if you can. Leave the leaf litter underneath trees, and leave some of the logs. If you cut down some trees, leave some of the logs in your yard or close to your yard. So those are things. So those are places where you're going to find firefly larvae. Some live in logs, some live in the leaf litter, and those are like. Or this also helps almost every insect. So this is not just firefly specific, but you're going to help a lot of insects by doing these things, by not mowing every inch of your yard, by not getting rid of every leaf and all those things. Just try to have like a couple of dedicated areas underneath the tree, like leave some of the leaf litter in the corner of your yard, leave some of that stuff. And maybe talk to your neighbors, talk to them and like cooperate, doing the same thing. If you're the only one doing this on a long street and everyone else is not, then the chances of you having this little island of fireflies is a little smaller than if you all do the same thing. Have little water features in your yard, like I don't know, ponds, or just like a little stream or something that goes through, and don't get rid of, like, I know this is like also a little dangerous because you could have mosquitoes because of this. But if you have flowing water, not standing water, the chances of mosquitoes are much slimmer, but you help fireflies because fireflies like areas with water. So a lot of them live at the edges of streams. They live at the edges of ponds and stuff. That's where they go hunting for snails. And that's where snails and slugs are. So little water features in your yard are going to help a lot of the fireflies.
Time out for one moment. I just want to do a little plug that we will be bringing a mosquito specialized entomologist on the program on the 22nd of April. So if you have questions about how to deal with mosquitoes, make sure you save the date and tune in then. All right, continue, Oliver. Thank you.
Also, try to avoid pesticides, your lawn chemicals. Do you really have to have the greenest yard in the neighborhood or the most perfect, grass or so? Just, if you can avoid it, try to avoid it. That's especially lawn chemicals, I think are it's not very good. And again, you kill a lot of insects, not just fireflies, but you have all these larvae of all kinds of insects that cannot fly, that cannot get away from where you spray. So you're going to harm populations. So if you can avoid that, great idea.
And I'll also add to that too, to say, how can you have a perfect yard without the beautiful, magical glow of fireflies in the summer?
That's right.
Yeah. So it adds this whole beautiful element that you can get no other way. And also, I'll throw out too that chemicals or pesticides in the yard typically disproportionately affect non-mosquito species. And so, quick plug also to say that usually one of the most effective way to eliminate mosquitoes is to dump and drain the man-made containers in the area in your lawn. And once again, come on April 22nd to learn more about dealing with mosquitoes. All right.
Yeah. Use natural fertilizers you can buy now. There's all kinds of natural fertilizers that make your grass grow as well. You don't have to use chemicals. Another idea, if you can do it more or less often, because especially in the spring, the firefly larvae are crawling in your grass. If you mow, your blade is going to like pull up grass, it's also going to pull up insects and kill them. So if you can more or less often do that as well. And again, just don't mow maybe a couple of areas in your yard where you just leave it natural and let grass grow, leave the leaves and everything, leave that as dedicated areas for insects. Plant native trees, your oaks, your all kind, just your native trees. Don't go with your orientals if you can avoid it. I know they look nice, but we have a lot of native trees that easily grow and provide shade and all that. So if you can plant your native trees that are in your area, that's where fireflies live. Also, some of the larvae live on trees. That's where they feed. That's where they look for their snails and slugs again. So if you can have that. This is actually, I just read that this week. I did not know that, but don't release earthworms. A lot of people are actually releasing earthworms in their yards, I guess. And what most people don't know is earthworms are not native to North America. Those are all European, most of them are European species. There's a few native ones on the East Coast in small populations, but the majority of earthworms are non-native, and by getting rid of the detritus and processing that, they get rid of food sources for other animals, fireflies, slugs, snails. They all eat those little things that crawl around in there, and so you harm populations of insects and other animals. And so the downstream effect of you harm one thing, then the food source for another thing is gone. So you want to avoid releasing earthworms. I know they get rid of your compost caster and stuff like that, but compost is also a place where a lot of insects like to hang out and find a lot of food, not just the compost, but they eat other insects there. So if you can avoid that, that's also very good. The last one I think is also a very important one, and I have a few papers about that and also a graphic. If you can turn your lights out at night, if you're inside and you don't need your light outside, turn it off and turn it on again in the morning. Like have maybe automated, like turn it off at 10 o'clock and turn it on again at 6 or something in the morning automatically, because fireflies communicate with light, right? They flash to each other, and all these light sources, they mess with that. So there's all these things that mess with their vision because there's all these light sources. So they may not find mates because they can't see the flashes from the mates because it's too much light. And there's a lot of research actually going on right now about this. And there's been several papers being published lately, especially in the aftermath of the whole insect apocalypse discussions. What's going on? How many species are we losing? How can we stop this? Lights at night are one of the reasons that these things are happening. And I'm going to share this graphic. This is a light pollution growth map, and you can see the different years where in the upper left corner, you have the late 50s. That was America, the US, Canada, and part of Mexico at night in the late 50s. On the right upper corner, you have the middle 70s. Left bottom, 1997. And at the right bottom, this is a projection of 2025.
Wow.
This is how it looks from space at night when you see what's going on in our country. And you can see in the East Coast, where most of our fireflies in the US, and we have about 160 species or so, have their home. That's what they deal with at night. There's all these light sources that mess with their communication. Just imagine you're going out, you want to find your partner at night with flashlights by flashing, and there's all this light, you can't see your light. And that's what's going on, and we have to try to figure out what we can do about that. And by turning off your light if it's not necessarily needed outside, is a good chance. And if you live in the countryside with no neighbors or very sparse neighbors, if you turn off your light, chances that you get fireflies in your property are going to go up. So there's definitely something. And this doesn't also, again, we're talking about fireflies specifically here, but this messes with all kinds of animals. This messes with all kinds of insects, but it also messes with birds and bats, and all kinds of insects are all disturbed by what is the research usually is called now artificial light at night. ALAN is the abbreviation for what people are researching. And there's tons of papers out now that you can look at and get information about what is going on. Interestingly, some larvae of Futurus, which is the femme fatales, they actually do not get disturbed. Sometimes when there is just spotlights, like street lights or something, they might actually stay out longer to hunt than maybe not. This was found in research by Avalon Owens and Sarah Lewis from Tufts University. They looked at that, and that was a surprise finding I think they had.
Wow. I wanted to chime in and say that Philadelphia has just started a program where they're going to have less lights on around the time of bird migration. And
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when it starts and ends, but I'm thinking like hopefully that tips into when the fireflies are active too. And if it isn't, maybe that's something to push for, to extend it to include when the fireflies are active. Yeah, it was recently announced within the last couple of weeks that they're going to do this program, and it's very exciting because I think it disorients birds when they're migrating. Yeah, causing more.
David asked if they flash brighter in areas with artificial light. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I have read any research about that or if there's any research out about that where they measured that. But I know there's probably people working on this. There might be groups of people in Taiwan working on this. They are very conscious about these things. I was in Taiwan 4 years ago now, and we were at a Firefly conference, and they actually in a big city park in Taipei City, they took out all non-native plants in an area, planted native plants, and then they released fireflies larvae there. And it was a big deal. Like they invited kids from schools to release these fireflies. And they also switched out the light sources in the park to, I think, an amber color, because that disturbs the fireflies a little less than other light spectra. And this is a really famous firefly park. And from what I was told during firefly season, 5,000 to 10,000 people every night go to see fireflies in this park in Taipei City. So fireflies are beloved, especially in Asian countries, Taiwan, Thailand, Japan. Fireflies are very beloved, and people do a lot of things to make sure that they survive, and for conservation efforts are really big. And there's tons of firefly parks, tons of firefly museums that are like there's a Toyota museum of fireflies in Japan that has nothing but firefly research in it. And it's just really amazing how they care about nature and insects in Taiwan and Japan, and how they raise their kids to respect all of these things. And it was humbling to see that. And I think if we can help our fireflies here, we have 160 species, and some of them are endangered. We should try to do what we can and help them to thrive. And light pollution is probably one of the reasons why people think there is declining populations of fireflies lately. Drought in the last few years was also a reason. So we had some really dry years. Fireflies like moist areas. So when we have a drought, that's not conducive for a lot of fireflies either. I think the populations have rebounded a bit in the last 2 years. I think there were a lot more observations of fireflies the last couple of years, and I think that's a good sign.
Cool. When you were talking about how they like moist places, I was thinking about how, slugs and snails like moist places, otherwise they dry up. And it also had me thinking about how you mentioned that fireflies eat earthworms, and so I guess but then you mentioned that a lot of the earthworms are not even native to here. So are there some worms that are, or they just happen to eat earthworms too, or but
There's
there's
a few species that are native, as far as I know, but there's really small populations.
okay,
The general earthworm you're going to find is an invasive one, but fireflies eat them. But if you have a big congregation of earthworms you release in your yard, they're going to get rid of your compost and stuff. They're going to process that,
right,
and that way they're going to process, or they're going to get rid of food sources for other animals, and that is a
right.
downstream effect down to the
It's,
fireflies.
it's overall bad for them, and
Yes.
that's a whole topic that I think deserves its own Bug Scope broadcast because it's one of those things that so much like it's just not a well-known piece of information that ought to be more present and known in
Yeah.
our society. Yeah. Um,
And
yeah.
if you want to help fireflies also, you can help researchers, not just researchers, but you can help by reporting your firefly findings. You see a firefly out, you take a picture, upload these pictures to iNaturalist, to Bug Guide, to any of these pages, especially iNaturalist, and there will be people helping you to identify fireflies. So sadly, fireflies are not like butterflies, where you can have a book and you can identify which species it is by maybe the pattern of your wings. A lot of the fireflies, we can only get to genus probably because you cannot see the characters like the genitalia to identify them without a microscope. But it helps us to see the distribution of certain genera or even some species across the US, and maybe the data can be used over time also to see how many species or how many observations were there in 2000 compared to 2020, let's say. And then in 2040, we can compare that again. And then we can, we have a trend. We can see a trend if there's actually less sightings or what's going on. Or maybe there's more again. So that's a good way for scientists to get, some citizen science data. And, you by promoting or by putting pictures on iNaturalist, you actually help science. You're a citizen scientist at that point. And people have found new species by looking at iNaturalist and seeing a certain species of insect and saying, oh, I have never seen this. I'm an expert on this group. I've never seen this thing. This is a new species. And you can contact the person that took the picture, and maybe you get involved in describing a new species, or you get credit for the picture, or little things like that. So it's an easy way to help and an easy way to get some data to scientists. And I actually have a picture of, let's see, iNaturalist. We have a Firefly project with a few people from the International Firefly Network, which is also something you can join on Facebook. It's called Fireflies International on Facebook. And here, every Firefly gets submitted to iNaturalist that is identified in Firefly gets put on the this project page, and then I every so often go actually through these pictures and try to identify them as far as I can, and will help people to get names to whatever they have. Sometimes it's not possible, but a lot of times, I try to get these things to species or to genus, and a lot of other of my friends also help there. So if you have a picture and you want to know what it is, and this works for every insect or every animal, I guess, on iNaturalist, even plants, you can put your picture on it, and people, a lot of times experts in their field, will help you or try to help you to get identifications of these things. And it's an easy way for you to figure out, what do I have in my backyard? What is this firefly? What is this beetle? What is this moth? You can get actually a name. And sometimes, like I said, you find something that no one has ever seen maybe in your area. This is a new thing. Pests have been found. People have put pictures on there, and all of a sudden someone was like, oh, we have never seen this. This is not good. Then they contact you, and then you help possibly avoid a big pest spread, or at least people know where the origin of the spread was and stuff. So that's an easy way to help. And David says in the UK you can help. They have all these recording schemes. Like almost every family of insect has a recording scheme. There is a a glowworm one, there's longhorn ones, scarab beetles. They have all these recording schemes where people submit pictures and they have this huge map of England, of the United Kingdom, to see where something was spotted. So, and that's also a really cool way to help in the UK. And a lot of countries have these things. I know in Germany there's a page for it, beetles, where you can submit pictures and people will help you. And I think a lot of countries have these websites to help. iNaturalist is international, but you have Bug Guide for America, which for insects in America, North America. And then there's some other pages, and there's tons of insect identification help pages on Facebook, but you can also, submit your picture to Twitter. Most likely someone will see it and someone will help you or know someone that can help you with your identification. And if you look at websites, you can, if you look for websites, there's all kinds of Firefly websites you can find with information or even with recording. There's one for Boston, for Massachusetts, where they record all the fireflies in Massachusetts. So that's a good place to help as well.
Well, thank you. Can you also share the book that you referenced as well, Oliver?
Yes.
That has a lot of info on how to help.
For some light reading,
Oops.
I suggest looking into this book. It's called Silent Sparks. It's by Sarah Lewis. She is on Twitter with the name @SilentSparks. This has a lot of information, like scientific information, but it also has information about how to help fireflies, how to recognize fireflies, stories about fireflies, amazing pictures. This is very easy reading, not too scientific. This is made for everyone to enjoy stories and facts about fireflies. If you want to maybe get a field guide, so there is a field guide, but there's the caveat, like I said, you cannot all the time identify something to species by just looking at a picture, even though this field guide is for the eastern part of North America, not for the western part. But it has pictures of almost every species that we know in the US. And you can, read about their flash patterns, their life cycle, some information. It sometimes has pictures from the larvae, females, males, and some other facts that are known about some of these species. Some species are very localized. There's a few fireflies that are only in Florida. There's some fireflies that are only in Arizona. So you can figure out, is a firefly widespread or not? Some other things you can do is you can check out some photography pages. This is a screenshot from Alex Wild. I'm not sure if he was ever on the Bugscope with Isa or not, but he works at Texas.
He has been, like
okay,
a year and a half ago, maybe.
Yeah. And he's a phenomenal photographer, and he takes amazing firefly pictures. And I'm actually lucky enough, I signed up for the Firefly Buckshot. It's a week-long workshop on firefly photography in June. So I'm going to get to learn how to take these amazing pictures, hopefully. Wow. And you can also buy some of these pictures on his website. And then another one is Radim Schreiber. He's from Iowa, I think. He lives now there. And his website is called The Firefly Experience. He has a coffee book filled with amazing pictures of fireflies. He has taken pictures for National Geography. He has taken pictures for some of the TV stations or showed them around. He's also a really good photographer. And I have some pictures of him. He prints them on aluminum. They never fade. They don't scratch. They're really amazing pictures. So these are a couple things where you can get information or just look at really amazing photography of fireflies.
Question for you, Oliver. As you look at the images, are you like, oh, I know that species by looking at the flash patterns that are picked up on the camera?
Yes, if you know how long the picture was exposed, you can technically figure out what's the distance between the flashes and the in between. I actually thought I uploaded a picture. Wait, I'm going to upload another picture
Okay.
to show a little bit about that.
Okay.
Um,
Sure. Um,
at least I thought I
and
downloaded it.
oops. And I'll say here now that if anyone has questions they want to ask Oliver while he's here with us, we're approaching an hour. So please put them in the chat now. We are broadcasting from HAPS, but we do see your comments from Facebook, from YouTube, from Twitch. So drop them in and we will do our best to answer them all. Hi, John. How's it going? Here's a photo that I took while he's uploading it. I'll show off my photo. um, this is one that I took in my backyard. It's definitely a challenge photographing fireflies. This one was sitting on a leaf, so maybe it was a female if it was just resting. I don't know. I don't know. It's tricky too in the dark. It's definitely a challenge photographing them.
It's possibly a female, but it could also be a male. It's hard to tell from this. It could be a male that just landed.
Yeah,
Let's see.
yeah.
Okay.
So this gives
It
us
was
that.
a GIF, so it wouldn't show. Let's see, fire
Mm.
flash pattern. There we go.
And then,
And
yeah, so.
okay, so this is a infographic. I would love to give someone credit for this. I have no idea whoever made this. I can't really figure this out. But if you look at this, at the bottom, there is different flash patterns. So each
Oh,
firefly
awesome.
species probably has a different flash pattern. So the distance, the time frame between flashes is different. Sometimes they do like little dot flashes. Sometimes they do longer flashes. This first one you can see is Photinus paralis, the Big Dipper, I think, is one of the common names, or the Eastern firefly. They make a J pattern. So if you outside and see a firefly that flashes and it starts and then it goes like a J up, that's Photinus paralis. That's the most recognizable flash pattern, easiest to figure out, and it's also the most common firefly in the East. So chances that you see this in June or July in the Eastern North America are fairly big. But look at it and you see that J flash pattern. It's really cool. Flash patterns also depend a little bit on the temperature. The warmer it gets, the faster the flash pattern gets with the species. And like you can see, there's like this little, the third one makes like 3 dots, then has a pause, then makes 3 dots again. The next one makes like these longer flashes, or it's kind of almost like a glow. And then there's also fireflies that have continuous lights, I would say. And this is a picture this is something you can see in North Carolina, Tennessee probably as well. This is called the blue ghost firefly because some people perceive the light as blue. Some people more into the yellow or white. I have not seen the blue. I cannot see the blue, but every person sees the light differently. So not necessarily because it's not blue, but I just can't see it. But see, they make like these continuous glows. They turn on and then they fly for a few seconds with this continuous glow. And when you do a picture of it, this is what you would get.
Have you seen them yourself or just
Yes.
photos of it?
No,
Okay.
I have seen them myself.
So I'm guessing that the color might come across differently, like when people have their photographs of them, depending on how the
Yes.
image is processed and all of that too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
will you be seeing this when you're doing the bug shot event in June?
Um, that's a good question. So it's just, I think, at the end of their season in the beginning of June. So we may or may not see them. They are where we are, but we may not see them because we might miss them at the end of the season. But we are actually there, and this is probably the coolest thing I'm looking forward to is we're there for the season of the synchronous fireflies,
Yeah.
where the males, like thousands of males, turn on at the same time and turn off. After
Yeah.
a while, they synchronize, and then you can see thousands of males turn on and turn off. And this is a thing that's not super common. We're finding more populations now, but it used to be only known from the Elkmont Mountains in Tennessee and a place in, I think, Malaysia. Those were the only synchronous fireflies that we knew of. Now there is some other populations in South Carolina. I think there's one in Ohio,
There's one in
Mexico. So people
Pennsylvania.
find more of them.
There's one in Pennsylvania, and David Attenborough went to it back in the early teens of 2000, like, I don't know, 14 maybe or something like that. And I also went to the forest, Allegheny National Forest in Pennsylvania, to see, because they have a Firefly Festival each year. It was canceled this past year, of course, because of COVID. But I don't know. I was a little, I guess I didn't know what to expect, and maybe I noticed it, but it wasn't as obvious as I thought it might be, at least with the population that I was experiencing. Maybe because when they synchronized the flashing, it was like, it wasn't like all at the same time, same time. It was like flash, 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 and then dark for a little while. Almost like a paparazzi scene is what it more felt like than like. And then there were other fireflies that were flashing in between those potential doubts, but I wasn't totally sure that I was seeing the synchronous firefly. Is it
So
obvious?
I'm not sure what species that is, but from what I've been told, I've not been there.
Yeah.
It's very obvious. Like the one in Tennessee, sadly, you can't just go there. It's actually you have to submit to a lottery, and they choose however many people for these 2 weeks that can actually go into the forest where this occurs to see, because they don't want just everybody go and disturb the fireflies. So it's very like limited to see. We are lucky with the buckshot that this is on a private property that is in this forest, so we will see it outside of this. But usually you have to submit to a lottery, so it's harder to get actually to go there. In Malaysia, and they have mangrove fireflies. So you actually they put you out on the boat, they take you into the mangroves, and then you just have thousands of fireflies flash at you at once.
Very cool. So magical. We live on an amazing planet. Related to this, do you see Abyss's comment over there? I heard
Yes,
that synchronous flashing is a means to help other male fireflies that cannot produce light. Is that correct?
I'm not 100% like familiar with what's going on there. I know that evolutionary reasons, like it's weird that they would all glow at the same time, because in normal other fireflies they glow, and they want to be brighter and faster than the other males to get the female. So what is the evolutionary reason to all flash at the same point if then you have to compete for the female with thousands of other fireflies? So it's a little weird, and I have to probably read up a little bit on that to figure out exactly if someone actually knows exactly what's going on. But I have not heard that they do that to help other males that cannot produce light. It's not something I'm familiar with. But yeah, it's from an evolutionary standpoint, very weird, that behavior.
Yeah. So we have 3 other questions here. Do their lights change color, from Terrence? In general, fireflies in general, I believe. That's the question.
So different fireflies can have different colors of light that you perceive. Anything from like bluish, whitish to yellow and greenish. But again, you might perceive that differently than the person standing right next to you, just because how our eyes work. But yeah, there's some fireflies that have bright yellow flashes, some more into the green. I was in Puerto Rico. There was a firefly that had the brightest whitish flash that I've ever seen. So it's really different between species. It's not just the flash pattern, I guess. It's also the wavelength of their light, and that might help them to communicate with the other fireflies of their species when there is 6, 7 different species out at the same time, and they all compete for females, but there's different flash patterns going on. So maybe the different colors help with that as well. And some fireflies kind of like do different things. So there's a firefly here in Florida that comes out right when the sun goes down. It's out, I think, I can't remember the exact minutes, but it's out just a few minutes and then it stops. And you won't see that again flashing for the rest of the night. And Jim Lloyd told me that he thinks that these are the few minutes they communicate with each other, and then other fireflies come out and they want to avoid confusion. So they just communicate during that short period of time. And if the male doesn't find a female or you don't find a mate, you're out of luck until the next day, I guess. So, and I've observed that. I've actually been out where they are, and it was exactly like I stopped it, and it was exactly the time Jim told me, and they stopped flashing, they were gone. And that's just such an amazing behavior to observe and to see, like this one species doing that, and then another species comes out, and you see this different flash pattern, but they avoid each other. They don't want to be out at the same time.
All right, and then Frank asks, are there fireflies in Europe?
Yes, so Europe is a little sad with fireflies, I guess, especially if you're in Central Europe. Where is he from? Do we know?
Oh, Germany.
Oh, Germany. So I'm as well from Germany originally. So in Germany, we have 4 species of fireflies. And they're all glowworms. So the females all don't have wings. They all crawl, as far as I know. Yeah, but we only have 4 species in Europe. You go down into the Mediterranean area, you get more species. England has 3 species, I want to say, I think. They don't have the 4, they have 1 less. But you go down into Spain, Portugal, Italy, there's probably like 10, 15, 20 species. And then you go into further south, you get more species. It's the same in North America. We have a decent amount, but you go into South America and there's just hundreds and hundreds of species. But they also don't usually get these big light shows that we get from Photinus paralis or other species where you get thousands of species at the same time. That also we have fewer species, but bigger light shows sometimes. And then you go further south, more species, not as nice light shows sometimes. So, but yeah, we think that South America is the origin of fireflies. And I'm actually writing or working on the world catalog for fireflies, and I will then count how many species are in the different areas of the world. But I'm assuming South America is going to have by far more than 600-700 species.
Wow, what a cool project, Oliver.
It's a lot of work and a lot of old literature.
How many species did you say again there are?
Probably my guess right now is 2,500.
That are described, or that you think
that are described, and there's probably another 2,000, 2,500 that are undescribed.
Yeah, cool. And that's why you guys got to put your observations on a naturalist or a bug guide or somewhere, so that you can help chip away and identify and document all those species. You might find a new one. You don't know. Okay. Gina says, are the larvae ambush predators?
Ambush predators? I'm not sure. I don't think they do any ambush. I think they just go down their business. If they find a snail, slug, or earthworm, they're going to eat it. I've never heard of any like being like an ambush species like you would have in an antlion or something, that build their little cone and wait for the ants. I don't think that's something that occurs in fireflies as far as I know.
They look rather mobile the way their legs are, and their prey is rather slow. It doesn't move so fast.
Yeah, fireflies are not the fastest either. And there was just a cool paper published about in Finland, where they looked at how many firefly larvae get killed by cars when they cross the roads.
Oh yeah,
and it's actually an interesting study, and I was surprised how many firefly larvae like that get killed like that.
Oh,
but yeah.
I was just gonna say that makes me think of when I was driving through Pennsylvania last year, and it was firefly season, and I remember there were a couple of fireflies that hit the windshield, and just the glow was smeared across the windshield, which was really pretty, but also I felt very bad as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a thing actually that people do. Well, I've been told, since I didn't grow up in America, but people used to, take fireflies and smear them on their faces and have
Yeah.
glowing skin and stuff, or put fireflies in jars and use them as lanterns and stuff. Those are, I think, like it's the pastime of some people in the East that grew up with fireflies and saw a lot of fireflies, and um, so,
My
but
aunt my aunt said that when she was younger, they'd take the fireflies and like I guess squish them and use the bioluminescent to make rings on their fingers,
yeah.
make engagement rings as kids. And I was like, oh, poor fireflies. But I mean, the thing is too, it is like good that people have such fond memories with these because like they have these real life experiences and it hopefully leads people to caring more about them and wanting to take care of them and wanting their kids to have positive experiences of catching fireflies and putting them in jars and watching them glow and all of those things too.
in One of the most interesting things I've ever found looking through Jim Lloyd's literature, like he has all these file cabinets, and I found this little article from the 60s or 70s where a chemical company, so luciferase, which is one of the chemicals that helps in making light, is also used in medicine, in biochemical research and medicine research.
Wow.
And until I think the 90s, they did not know how to make this in the lab, so they had to actually get this from live fireflies. So they would pay kids or anybody who wanted, I think, a tenth of a cent per firefly. So kids would collect thousands and thousands of fireflies and send them to this company. And I heard there was a town in, I want to say Nebraska or Iowa, that the whole town got together. They all collected fireflies and they financed their public pool by collecting fireflies.
Amazing.
So this is thankfully not the case anymore. So we don't, not a lot of fireflies get killed for this reason anymore because we can synthesize this. But this is something that went on in the 60s, 70s, 80s, where kids, like, they would put like little ads in newspapers and say, you want to catch fireflies for money? We sent you the net, we sent you the packages, everything you need to send us fireflies, we sent you. And then you can, they called this the Kids Firefly Club and stuff. And it's really cool, like the ads and stuff like that. So those things are like so cool to find. Like,
Wow.
and it's crazy that they did that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, cool. Oh, here. So do you see Abyss's
Yes.
question? Okay.
Um,
Let's read it out loud first for those who are not.
do synchronous versus flashing lights differ in metabolic rates? Is there interspecies variability in fluorescent biochemical responsible for the flashes? Sorry for the loaded question. That is a loaded question. People have looked into this. There's a few papers about the metabolic rates. I'm not sure if I read this because it's kind of a little bit outside of my interest. Because I'm a taxonomist, but as far as I know, there's probably no difference between synchronous and flashing lights in the metabolic rate. I mean, the metabolic rate is very low anyway, so firefly light is very like energy efficient. There's almost no waste of energy. It's about like a 5 to 10% waste of energy. Looking at a light bulb we use, it's like 70% that goes into heat. So firefly lights, the chemical reaction that goes on with the luciferin, the luciferase, oxygen, ATP, and stuff is very energy efficient. So I'm sure there is a difference in metabolic rate, but it's probably the difference is negligible. It's not very important.
Negligible.
Yeah. So, but I'm not sure. If you're interested, you can get in contact with me on Twitter or so, and I can see if I have any papers and I can get those to you. I do have a huge collection of Firefly papers. I have over 3,000 PDFs ranging from taxonomy to ecology to biochemistry. Anything you probably ever wanted on Fireflies, I probably have it. So
And
if you want to get in contact on Twitter, please do. And I can share or can look for some of these things. And if you want them, I can share them with you. but it's a little outside of my expertise. I'm not really into the biochemistry, into the metabolic rate physiology research on fireflies. But I'm sure people have done lots of that.
Mm-hmm. I have a question too, which I don't know if it could be one of those things it's beyond just fireflies, but who did it first when it came to the bioluminescence? Fireflies or like the elaterid beetles or other insects that bioluminesce? Like in Central America, there are click beetles, elaterids, that
We have them in Florida
oh,
and
you
in
do?
Arizona as well.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Um,
Do you by any chance know much about that?
I don't know if anybody has ever looked at what would have come first, but there's some probably some research out on that. I'm not sure if I know a phylogeny right now that would actually go into that, which one are older. I might have to share that information with you on Twitter, and maybe you can share it with
Sure.
your uh, subscribers, but I can look into that. But there are four different groups of beetles that bioluminesce. You have the fireflies in the family Lampyridae. You have phangodids, which are the railroad worms. It's the common name, which we have in North America, that is a new world thing. And there's now actually that for the first time found some in the Middle East. But basically, they are in North and South America. Then there is the oragothelmids, which is an Asian thing. And then you have the bioluminescent click beetles, which I'm not sure, but I think they're also New World. Yeah, we have one species in Florida, I think, two species or three species in Arizona, and then tons of species when you go down into Central South America. I mean, just tons of them. And they are really cool. They don't flash, they have continuous light, and it's on their shoulders. And they
Yeah.
just fly, and you see those two lights kind of like fly towards you. It's really cool.
Wow. I saw one once when I was studying abroad in Costa Rica back in the day, and when I saw it, I thought that it was on the ground. I thought someone had dropped their flashlight because it was so bright. And then I was like, wait a second, oh my gosh, and freaked out because I was so excited to find this glowing beetle. So
Oh,
Betty's
great.
asking where in Florida.
So I'm in Gainesville. As far as I know, that people have seen them in Cedar Key, but I think they're fairly widespread. They're probably more common in the southern part of Florida, but we do have them here in the area of Cedar Key, and then probably down the coast. I think they're more along the coastline than they are in the central Florida, central part. Um, I have not seen them here. I've collected them in Dominican Republic and in Honduras, but I've not seen them in Florida. But I know they are here. I've seen specimens from here, but I never collected them myself. And they're probably out uh, at the end of April, maybe May. They're probably going to start coming out.
Well, thank you. Cool. Um, so I'll put up. We're approaching an hour and a half now, so we can wrap it up. If you guys, I'll put up the posts, the info sheet, the 8 things you can do to help fireflies, um, to have present as we top off our time here today.
Yeah.
And yeah, I want to say thank you so much, Oliver, for joining us today. If people do have follow-up questions, like he was saying, you can find him on Twitter. I dropped Oliver's Twitter handle in the chat here, so I believe you can click right into it, do that. But
Yeah, it's probably the easiest way to get in contact.
yeah, at Dr._Firefly. Nice and straightforward. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, James. How's it going? Uh, and oh yeah, and also for anyone who is unfamiliar with the bug scope as well, when you give awards on HAPs, which are like coins and monetary support, I split it with the guests. Although in this case, Oliver said use it to support the bug scope. So thank you, Oliver, for that. And also, Oliver, before you head out, first of all, if there's any last things you want to share that please say so now. And then also, will you please bring up your stuffed firefly so we can see it up close more for fun? Yay! Does it have a name?
No, it does not. But I got it a few years ago on where did I go get it? On Etsy, I think. Someone they make pillows, and you can tell them what kind of animal you want, and
Oh,
they make pillows, and it's huge. It's like 5 feet long, and it's for tinus paralis. So this black dot on red is kind of like one of the things you can identify that with. So, and it even has a light organ
wow.
and everything, antennae and
We can't
everything. I
see the
mean,
light that much because there's too much light pollution in your office right now.
yes, there is. Maybe it's just glowing. Maybe that's why you can't see it.
Oh, okay, okay.
But yeah, I had that made a
Awesome.
couple of years ago, and I really love it. And the
Wow.
artist actually is called Bersbuds, Bersbuds, and I think you can find her on Etsy. And she takes
Cool.
commissions, so you can say I want a I don't know, butterfly pillow, and you send her a picture of the butterfly you want. She will probably make it. It took maybe
Fantastic.
4 weeks to make, but it's great.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, of your own study species and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, cool. Yeah. So I think,
Otherwise,
yeah.
please try to help fireflies as much as you can if you can. Think about them when when this spring comes along and you want to work in your yard. Think about leaving a little spot for the insects. Conservation is important. We're losing insects at a rate where we don't describe as many as we're losing, probably. And, species, when they're gone, we'll never know about them. And it's sad to think that there might have been thousands of insects species that we've never even found a single specimen and that we can't get back. So if there's anything you can do, please try to do it, and
And there
follow
are
the bug
things you can
scope for
do.
more information about all these things you can help. You
That's
know,
right. As we listed before, these are some of the things that you can do. That's within your power to do in your yard or on your porch. You can even grow some native plants, perhaps, or you can talk to your neighbors, conversations, have signs that say that you are sustaining wildlife in your property to start those conversations, talk about it in your local politics, all sorts of different things, ways that you can contribute to helping. And then, yeah, take a screenshot of this for safekeeping. Um, so we'll read through it real fast too for anyone who's just listening perhaps and not watching the screen. So one, leave leaf litter and logs. Let's do every other, okay, Oliver? I'll say one, you say the next, then I'll say the one after, okay? So
okay.
one, leave leaf litter and logs in your yard.
2, have water features in your yards like ponds and streams.
3, keep your yard pesticide free.
4, use natural fertilizers if you need to.
5, mow less often.
6, plant native trees and shrubs.
7, don't release earthworms. This is especially targeted towards North America, I believe, because a lot
Yeah.
of the earthworms that you might get from a store are not native. Are not native, so because of that, they're interacting with the natural environment and the places where they might live in ways that are detrimental to the soil and leaf litter health.
Yeah. And then last, I think really important, try to turn off your outside lights so we don't have as much light pollution. Use maybe a light bulb that's a little less intense than the one you might have right now. But if you can turn the lights off, don't leave them on.
Yeah, so super. So get out there and help the fireflies and appreciate them. And thank you so much, Oliver, for joining us today. If you guys want to support the Bug Scope and the operations and all of that, you can you can subscribe and sponsor my channel here on HAPS. You can also support through Patreon as well. I started this several months ago, and I'm just starting to build it up. I'll just put I don't have the copy and paste ready, but here. Isa Beta Bug.
Well,
You
thanks for
can,
having me on Bugscope. Finally, it's
yeah,
amazing.
great to have you, and hopefully we'll be happy to have you back again. When you have the World Catalog back up and running again, come on to the Bugscope to celebrate. How about that? That'd be a lot of fun.
Okay. All
So
right.
you can celebrate it and give us a tour um, of the page and the work that you've done on it and all of that. So yeah,
Will do.
cool. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Come on by at the usual time on Thursday for a broadcast with Ashley Whiffen, and we'll be talking about carrion beetles, or beetles that eat dead animals, and all things beetles. So, all right. See you then Thursday at 2:30. Thanks again, Oliver. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today.